It's time for our afternoon keynotes. Please welcome to the stage Thrive Markets co-founder and CEO, Nick Green. Nick will be interviewed by Melissa Repko, retail and consumer reporter at CNBC.
Thank you all for joining us, and welcome, Nick. Good to have you on stage.
Thanks for having me.
So a lot of our audience, of course, is very plugged into grocery and CPG, but I did want to start out by talking a little bit about Thrive Market and how you got started and how you have evolved since then as a company.
Sure. So, first of all, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with Thrive, a lot of people describe us as Whole Foods meets Costco meets Trader Joe's, all wrapped up online. And if that doesn't make any sense, we are a membership club for healthy living. So goal is to make the kind of best-selling products that you'd find at a traditional brick-and-mortar retailer that sells natural and organic food available at affordable prices, and then wrap it all in an experience that is really purpose-built to make healthy living easy. So our members pay an annual fee. We provide the products at a much lower price, and then have a bunch of features and filters and specific UX for healthy living.
So a big part of your mission is obviously health and wellness, but you also have become a bit of a CPG player yourself with your private label. What initially inspired your interest in launching private label, and how did you go about that?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it actually ties to your first question, which I didn't fully answer, which is where did we start? So everything about Thrive Market is around the mission. We want to make healthy and sustainable living easy, affordable, accessible to everyone. And when we launched, we were all third-party products. So we said, let's get the best-selling products that you'd find in a health food store. But what we found pretty quickly was that there were some things that people still wanted but couldn't find. And one of the advantages that we have being an online retailer is that we have incredible data, not only into what people buy, but also what they are looking for and can't find. So we, unlike a lot of businesses, didn't start out saying, we're just a retailer or we're just a CPG brand. For us, it was about the mission. And so when it made sense to be a retailer, we did that. When it made sense to shift into being a brand as well, we did that. And so, we launched about a half dozen products initially, driven by that data. Every one of them was, up-leveling, innovating, doing something different. And it went really well. And, fast forward today, we have over 500 Thrive Market branded products on site. They're the best-selling products, highest rated products, highest reordered products on the site. And, last year we did more than $100 million in sales just on the Thrive Market brand.
One of the big pieces of what Thrive Market does is curating, which is something that's referred to in the title of this session. And tell me a little bit more about why you curate products and when you decide, hey, there's an opportunity, let's launch our own product here.
Another great question. And again, I'll go back to the mission. We want to make healthy and sustainable living easy to anybody. And I think the typical retail approach is more assortment is better. It turns out if you're wanting to get healthy, that can be pretty overwhelming. You want high quality standards, you want things that meet the needs that you have, and having 40,000 results when you search for almond butter, having to scour the aisles and look at the nutrition labels to figure out what works for your diet, your lifestyle, your values is really hard. So we start by hyper-curating the catalog. We have about an order of magnitude fewer SKUs than you'd find at a retailer. So if you walk into Whole Foods, there's, call it 40,000 products in the non-perishable section. We're going to carry 5,000 or 6,000, but they're going to be the highest quality. All of them are non-GMO, and then we tag every product according to more than 100 different metadata categories, so people can filter the products that they want. So it starts with that. That's what motivates the curation. It does mean we have a very high bar for letting new products onto the site. But we also work really collaboratively with new brands. So about half of the products on Thrive Market, even outside of the Thrive Market brand, are products that are launching first on Thrive Market. So we call it moving left of the trend curve, where again, we can use our data to look at not just what people are buying right now, but what they want but can't find. And we'll launch products and brands and take some risk that other retailers might not be able to take because they don't have that data. And it creates a lot of value for our members because now we're not just providing great products that they could buy somewhere else at better prices, but also providing products that they can't find anywhere.
Can you give us a few examples of those types of products where you saw opportunity to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, one of the trends that we leaned into really heavily in the last few years was plant-based. And everyone has seen plant-based milk, non-dairy bev for a long time, but it started to really, there was a lot of interest across other categories. So I'll give you just an example of one product that we did under our own brand, which you wouldn't normally expect to be plant-based, and that's chili. So we actually partnered with Beyond Meat. They've been an amazing partner to us, and did some innovation, and it's one of the best-selling products that we have in that category now.
Wow, very interesting. One of the other aspects that's unique to Thrive Market for people who haven't tried it is that there's a different approach you take with product discovery. I think a lot of us experienced online grocery shopping more frequently during the pandemic, and frankly, a lot of the time it's pretty joyless and dull, and we do it out of necessity. It's not the same fun you have when you walk down a grocery store aisle and feel inspired by end caps and things like that. And with Thrive Market, there's a lot of sampling, there's a lot of personalization. How do you think about adding more delight to the online grocery experience?
So I think a lot of e-commerce, especially early on, was kind of taking the brick and mortar model and trying to apply it online, and usually it wasn't quite as good. The way that we've tried to think about it is, first through that lens of how do we make healthy and sustainable living easy, so everything runs through that filter. But second, how do we do things online that you simply can't do in brick and mortar? So, again, if you're wanting to shop for keto in a brick and mortar store, you have to go and actually check the label on every single item. Online, we can have a filter for that. If you are interested in keto, but you don't quite know what that means, if you're in the grocery store, you kind of got to go on your phone and check and see if you can read an article. On Thrive, you can get that content integrated right into the shopping experience. So everything for us is how do we make it easy? How do we make it simple? How do we make it more accessible? And we've just layered in more and more features to do that. So whether it's filters or now it's actually AI-driven or algorithmically driven personalization, where we are bringing not only the content and the products and the experience that is great for our members in general, but actually those three things that are tailored specifically to you based on a quiz you complete when you become a member, and then thousands of data points that we track every time that you're shopping. So we think that's kind of the next barrier to entry, if you will, to healthy living that we want to break down. It's not affordability. We've broken that down and made it more cost effective. It's not geographic, right? We ship anywhere in the country. 50% of our member base is in the Midwest and the Southeast. It is that user experience. How do we make it less intimidating, less overwhelming, just easier?
You've talked before about how you want to drive down the cost of healthy food, and I think for a lot of our audience, they know, unfortunately, healthy food usually means expensive food. How can you actually get to what you said you wanted to do, which is making it just as affordable to get a Kind bar as a Snickers bar? How do you actually do that, particularly in an inflationary time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very relevant question for this moment. It's also a deeply personal question for me. The genesis of Thrive goes back to my childhood growing up, middle class in the Midwest, and seeing how hard my mom worked to make healthy choices, knowing that where we lived there weren't a lot of options, and the options that were there were much more expensive. And it's pretty crazy to think that here we are 30 plus years later, and still for millions, tens of millions really, families in the country, that's still the case. So that was the first barrier that we really focused on, and it is the reason why we have the membership model. And it might seem a little counterintuitive because you pay for that membership, right? It's $60 a year. But what that enables us to do is give much better pricing on the products themselves. So that's the first key, and that's how we're able to go and try to peg to the conventional equivalent on every product that we have. We also, by the way, provide free memberships to low-income families, first responders, military veterans. Anyone that can't afford the membership can still get on. But then there's a few other things that we've done in the model to make it more affordable. And one of them actually is curation. You don't really think about this, but when we curate the catalog by an order of magnitude, that means we're punching way above our weight on the products and brands that we do buy, which means we actually get better cost of goods from a volume standpoint. We also, with that curated catalog, can go direct with vendors more often. With our own brand, we actually go up the supply chain and buy direct even from producers or farmers collectives, different suppliers. And cutting out those middlemen also enables us to provide better pricing. I will say in the inflationary environment, and many in the audience are familiar with this, it has not been easy. We've seen costs across the entire supply chain go up. And so we've had to get really creative. We made some innovations to our box, to our packaging, to try to cut out cost. And we've also done things to introduce new ways for our members to save. So we've started to give more, purchasing of case packs where you can save that way, buy more, save more, auto ship and save, which we now have, almost a third of our sales are on recurring order that our members have. So we're trying to be creative and, at a time that's really challenging for consumers, be there for our members to be that place of savings. And in general, what we're finding is people value their membership more. They renew at a higher rate in an environment where savings are so important.
What are you seeing in terms of inflation? I would think one of the challenging things about this time is people might say, you know what, Thrive Market's a specialty retailer. Maybe I'll just go to the drugstore, get something on discount there, or go to my regional grocery store where I can get a deal more conveniently. How do you get them to stick with you during a period like this?
Yeah, we've gotten that question a lot, and I think from the outside you'd say, wow, it's hard. You would think that people are gonna trade down, so to speak. And the first thing I would say is we're not seeing that. I think the mega trend that we're betting on at Thrive Market and like our own belief system is around conscious consumption, conscious living. And so that means healthy for yourself, it means healthy for the planet, it means more socially conscious. And insofar as people are becoming more focused on those things, which they absolutely are, these are core to how people feel, to their values, to their integrity, to their sense of who they are. They're not things that go out the window when times get tough. But what does happen is people want to try to achieve those things in a way that is more affordable. So again, what we've seen is more interest in savings on Thrive Market, more loyalty actually from our members, shifting more of their spend towards Thrive Market. And of course, having more price sensitivity. So they're going towards those items on site where we're able to provide more value. Maybe it's our own brand products and some of the core, kind of fundamental products versus maybe not shopping as much on the specific diet areas and things like that. But I think what we have seen is price sensitivity. What we haven't seen is people saying, well, I cared about regenerative ag before, but now, I'm going to throw that out. That's definitely not happening.
Very interesting. You told me also something that kind of surprised me about your customer. Tell us a little bit more about your average customer in terms of income, geography, and has that changed over the past few years with the pandemic?
Yeah, this again goes back to why we started Thrive in the first place. I grew up middle class in the Midwest, and our whole vision was let's take healthy, natural, organic living, which is pretty accessible in LA and New York and San Francisco, and let's bring it to places where it's not. It was one of the most heartening things we saw in the first year of the business as those orders came in. It was so widely distributed from a geographic standpoint. Then we started running the credit card panel data and getting information on some of the other demographic features, and particularly income levels. And our average household income is under $100,000. So today, average member makes under $100,000 household-wide. 50% are in the Midwest and the Southeast. We have as many members over the age of 50 as under the age of 30. It is very, very diverse. And I think what I would say is that conscious living maybe 10 years ago was very demographically aligned. Now it's becoming very psychographically aligned, and it's started to transcend a lot of those traditional barriers. Which for us is super exciting because it's saying what I said before. Conscious living is no longer just a luxury. People are seeing climate change as a reality. It's not just a hypothetical. They're seeing health outcomes as a reality, not as something that was kind of pushed under the rug, and they want to do something about it.
You've been thinking about food for a long time as a company. That's the core tenet of your mission. What are you thinking about now in terms of the future of food, and how can you be a leader in these emerging areas?
Well, we are really passionate about food. We think that's where health starts, but we talked about this earlier too. One thing I would say is we're also thinking beyond food. And I think as people kind of start with what they put in their body, and then they move to what they put on their body, what they put in their home, what they give to their pets. So we're very invested in not only the future of food, but also the future of CPG broadly. That said, food is for us the foundation. And we're really excited about where it's going. And we're excited that what is happening is being so driven by this conscious consumer mentality that is becoming so mainstream. There were things that we used to do at the beginning of the business that we did because they were the right thing, but our members didn't really even know what they were. So like an example of this, a few years ago, regenerative started to actually be an option. So before that, organic was kind of the gold standard. Do no harm, don't use pesticides, no glyphosate in the soil, that's great. Regenerative goes a step beyond. It's actually sequestering carbon, regenerating topsoil, hopefully undoing some of the damage that's been done to the environment. And that was literally a term that when we started to use it on site, like nobody knew what it meant. It didn't get engagement. When it did, it was like people asking member services what the heck it was. And fast forward 2 or 3 years, and this is something that consumers not only care about, they're asking about, they're demanding. And if you look at our roadmap on own brand, we're going into regenerative in every supply chain where we possibly can. So yeah, we're really excited about regenerative. We're super excited about plant-based, as I was mentioning before. And just generally, we're excited about people thinking about food that is healthy for them, but also healthy for the planet.
How are you thinking about sustainability? Packaging is something we all are well aware of as a problem in grocery. It's hard to solve. How far back in the supply chain can you go and try to work with vendors to decrease plastics or come up with creative solutions, and even thinking about shipping and ways to reduce that as a direct-to-consumer player?
Yeah, I think this is another one where the consumer is really going to be the driving force. There are companies like us, we're kind of zealots, and we did it ourselves before, and now the consumers are catching up. But I think what's going to really drive adoption from a lot of other retailers and brands is consumers demanding it. And as that happens, a virtuous cycle takes hold where there's more demand for more sustainable products and substrates and packaging, and that is going to drive more volume, which brings costs down. I'll give you just a couple examples. We did carbon neutral shipping from day one when we launched, and that was another one where it just wasn't in the lexicon. We did it because it was the right thing to do. 5 years later, it's something that we actually market as a feature of our membership. We went zero waste in our fulfillment centers a few years ago. It's like 20 different CapEx projects, and we did it because it was the right thing to do. We wrote a blog article about it. It got some engagement, whatever. Now we're going plastic neutral and trying to do that by 2025, and our members are pushing us to go faster and do it this way and do that. And the truth is, it's so much easier for us to now do these things because there's more innovation happening, because there's more demand for that innovation. We go pretty deep. I think I told you earlier about in order to avoid styrofoam in our frozen orders, we actually use recycled denim, which has a similar R factor, but you can actually throw it in the compost pile. We love doing that stuff. But in that case, for example, it took 2 years before the cost came down far enough for us to actually get out and do frozen. So it's definitely been a challenge historically, but I think it's one that's going to open up and become much, much easier and much more required, frankly, as consumers demand it.
That leads to my next question, which is, what have been some of the challenges as you've branched out into other categories? Thrive Market originally started with a lot of pantry staples, but now you sell wine, you sell frozen meats. How has that gone so far, and what have been some of the pain points?
I mean, tons of challenges, as you can probably imagine. I think the fundamental challenge that we have in every category that we go to is that we, one, have to be affordable. 2, we want to up-level quality standards. And then 3, we want it to actually be a product that people enjoy and say tastes good. And you have a lot of retailers and a lot of brands out there that are trying to do one of those things or maybe 2 of those things, but doing all of them well is really challenging. So you mentioned wine, and this is a perfect example. We brought a master sommelier in to curate our wine assortment, and we basically told him, look, we need to be under $20 a bottle, and ideally under 15. We need to have a taste profile that really matches mainstream wine consumers' palates. We also need it to be organic and biodynamic. And we challenged him and we said, and we also want it to be something you would put in a restaurant with a Michelin star. He's like, well, we'll see about that, but I can definitely hit the other 3. And we have a program now that I would put it up against any wine program in the country, and is doing it all with organic and biodynamic, direct sourcing from typically small wineries, usually in Europe. And we're now price point, probably 80% of those bottles are under $12.
Great. Well, I have to ask you before we leave the stage, what are some of your favorite snacks or products you've discovered as part of your job? I would imagine you did some sampling of those wines. I would hope you did. What have been some of the products you feel like you as a company have discovered and as a person have discovered that really get you excited about food?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you on wine, I'm one of those people that one glass of red wine gives me a headache the next day, and biodynamic and organic wine actually solve that. So if you're like me, there's a takeaway for today. But no, I mean, I try all the products that we sell. To be honest, I'm pretty simple myself, and one of the things I love seeing us do is just remove ingredients. So, doing products that are single source, like our extra virgin olive oil. We have, this is going to sound crazy, but an incredible canned sardine product that is very, very clean, very ethically sourced, and that's one of the healthiest, forms of fish that you can consume. So, those are a couple of my favorites. I like our jerky. I tend to try to keep it pretty simple, though.
We were talking backstage about some of the new snacks I've tried through that Thrive Market, some new dried fruit, and I even tried recently a seaweed scrub because of one of your freebies as a product discovery feature of Thrive Market. So lots of different products to discover, and thank you for giving us more insights about where Thrive Market's going next.
Thanks so much. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Thanks all.